In the second year, the third year, rather, we finished 2 years of the economic transformation program. We thought it is useful to have a more intimate dialogue with some of you before the annual report comes out. By the first quarter of next year, we would be able to get our annual report that provides all the details about what has been achieved in the second year, and that will be fronted by our Prime Minister. But as a prelude to that's useful now not the 2 years is actually officially over on the 25th of October, actually, the second year. And so it's important that we have some of you folks who are more or less like the opinion formers, the media, the analysts, plus the various bodies that are giving opinions about how things are moving on in the countries, chambers, embassies, and plus some of the project champions that are involved in the work. And perhaps this is an opportunity to do a live engagement with people that are not physically with us here, but they can join us through Twitter and other social media. Just recapping, go back to the earlier one. You need to remember that the journey for the economic transformation program began with the definition of what and where we want to be as a country, the new economic model. Let's not forget that. The new economic model that was started by the Prime Minister under the leadership of Tan Sri Amisham at the time. They defined what does it look like when we become a high-income nation, a developed nation by the year 2020. 3 things were depicted by them. One was the high-income position. Second is about inclusiveness. That means as many of us, all of us, if you like, should benefit from this prosperity. All communities, not just 1 or 2, but everybody. And the third one was about sustainability, that we don't do things only for the present day generation. We also need to look at the future generation. If you didn't do that, for example, if we want to grow our economy at 10% today, we can do it, very quickly, but it may mean that we sacrifice the future. Suppose we were to want to 10% growth. We'll simply ask oil and gas companies, Shell and Exxon and others and Petronas, is just increase the production of oil and gas, totally to the hilt. We produce as much today, instead of having, let's say, 40 years of reserves that we have, we cut it down to 20. Future generation don't have. So that is not the way to do it. That is why when you think about the John Venn diagram, high income, inclusiveness, and sustainability, it is very important to take the balanced approach. And that's what we're trying very hard to do, to make sure we take that notion in all the things that we do, okay? So that's that. Then we came out with the economic transformation program on the 25th of October to make sure that the policy where we want to be is now brought down to practical levels, how we implement. So the journey is moving on. We've now done 2 years of implementation, and we're heading towards the year 2020. That's what we are doing today. I want to cover 4 things today. One, a quick recap of the ETP, and the other one is updates on where we are on the NKA, on the strategic reform initiatives. Then we will talk about the economy. What's happening to the economy? Is it positive? Do we see signs that these are going well? And finally, what are the challenges that we face going forward? Let me first begin by this notion of high income. Who came with this idea of the high income idea on GNI? This is the World Bank's notion. World Bank classified economies into 4 categories. First category is low income. There are 36 countries that belong in that. Example are Mali, Bangladesh, Cambodia, Nepal, Tanzania. Then you have the lower middle income. You can see the GNI that the World Bank puts there, US, $1,000 to $4,000. And there are 52 countries there. And examples are Indonesia, India, Sri Lanka, Vietnam, Ghana. There are 52 countries in that. The third is those countries that in upper middle income. Upper middle income means US dollars per capita of 4,036 up to 12,475. And there are 54 countries. And these examples are Malaysia is there, China is also there, Brazil, Turkey, Mexico. These are the countries that are nearly there. We are nearly there. And then finally, you have the high income. There are 69 countries that belong there. Singapore, USA, Switzerland, Japan, and Israel, to name a few. Some of the data that we have for Asian economies, the data that we showed, economies are like human beings. When you are young, you grow very fast. You know, like children, you run very fast. It's a bit like this. The Asian data that we have, about 7% growth. We used to, when we were low income, we used to do 12%, 10%. It's just like when we were young, we used to grow very rapidly. Remember when you grow older, and you stop to grow very fast, slow down a little bit. When you reach 60, maybe you start dying already. You don't grow. So I always tell people, this is a joke that I have with people, from 0 you grow, right up to 40. This is my own, this is no theory, it is Jalap theory only, don't worry. So from 0 all the way we grow up to 40. From 40 we start to plateau. You don't actually grow anymore. And then you reach maybe 50. From 50 you start dying. I'm already well past 50, I'm already dying slowly. Because you see, every day you got backache. You got problem, you think you can play squash before, actually you cannot play it anymore. Some of those vigorous sports, I got sleep disc, some people got acne problem, all sorts of things, because the body is no longer growing. It's actually slowly dying. You're lucky, you grow like my grandmother, she's actually 102 years old and still can thread the smallest needle. Still alive, my grandmother. Because in Barrio, everything's organic before. Everything good, fresh air, etc. I hope some of us can live that long, but not everybody. But a lot of problems. So I think nations are like that. You see more developed nations, they don't have many babies anymore, aging population, and some of them grow a little less robust. Actually, I was in Davos attending the World Economic Forum. I'm a council member at one of the panels for World Economic Forum. There was a professor from Harvard who said this: the world is going through an economic convergence. Economic convergence. And he believes there's no global crisis. This is my Professor Hausman. I want to put this so that we all wake up early in the morning. This is no global crisis. The rich countries are growing slowly, and some of them are not growing. The poorer countries are growing very fast to catch up with them, so that there's less inequality in this world. No global crisis. It's very good, he said. But there's a problem in the rich countries expecting to grow as they used to grow when they were poor. They have to adjust the expectation. So essentially, when you catch up, when everybody has reached that point called the high-income nation, there's less inequality and less difficulties in terms of trading between countries. So actually, it's good the way he described. Of course, there's a crisis in some of the countries in Eurozone, sure, but it's not a global crisis. The other countries are rapidly catching up. So that's a different view. So I hope it helps you to think things through. We are right there and we have to move. Our view was, when we first started the ETP, our GNI numbers stood at $6,700 that time. And we wanted to make sure we achieve the number that was set there. Where is the $15,000 coming from? Why do you put that number? Actually, if you read the World Bank's number, it's 12,476. Okay? At the time when we came out with the ETP, we asked the question, the number 12,476, the World Bank number today, if you're high income, that's the number today. But they have been changing it every other year, or every 2 to 3 years, they change that number. So we then took a look at the last 10 years of inflation, the world's inflation numbers over the last 10 years. The last 10 years, the global inflation stood at around 2% per annum. So we took the 2% and imputed it on the 12,476 to come up with what we regarded as, that might be the number by the year 2020, if we follow the global 10-year data. That's the world inflation. So some of you may ask the question, why did we not take a 3% or 4% growth inflation numbers? No, because this data is not a Malaysian ruler. It's a global ruler that the World Bank put. So it's a standard ruler that you put for everybody. Of course, if you do better, then that's good. But this is how the data is there. I know there are some people that try to confuse everybody by talking these things through. This is a ruler that is applicable to all countries, whether you're Bangladesh, whether you're India, whether you're Timbuktu, the same ruler applies. That means if you go past that 15,000, then you are in the fourth category, and that's why that number is there. Now, let's pause for now to see, when we took the approach of where we're heading, the video showed clearly the ETP took a catalytic approach moving forward. That means a catalyst to cause the entire body to then move. The body means the Malaysian economy in entirety. So if you look at the numbers, we have said by the year, in the year 2009, the GNI, total GNI, gross national income for Malaysia, stood at 661 billion ringgit. To make sure that we achieve at least the minimum 15,000 per capita, we need 1.7 trillion. How do we do it? 3 steps, 3 buckets if you like. The first one is based on the projects that we knew when we began. We call them the entry point project. If you enter a door, see, you open the door, you enter the door of transformation. At that point, we knew there were 131 entry point projects. That's what we're not God. We only knew those projects at that point in time. But we deliberately call them entry point. That because we don't know, next year we add more new ones. Thereafter we add new ones. So those are the entry point. When we enter the door, that's what we knew. We don't know what we don't know, but we expect they will come. And that's borne out in the last 2 years' experience. That's the first point. The second one was, we described quite clearly there are opportunities that we call business opportunities, but we don't know the project. For example, we knew that there are more hotels that will come to Kuala Lumpur. We know there will be, but we don't know which hotel. So we define there will be more hotels that will come in Kuala Lumpur. And so those were called business opportunities. We listed down 60 business opportunities in the ETP, that those business opportunities will, over time, be translated into projects. Okay? So they will become translated into projects. So we had a bucket for that. Then the other sectors, this is not part of the NKEA. Construction, the media industry, all the other things. And they are not part of what we do here, the creative industry, but they are part of the Malaysian economy. So that's there too. So you have the A plus the B plus the C, when you add it all together, that constitutes the whole economy, the whole beast, not just one, but the whole thing. And remember always, the ETP is a catalytic approach. So for example, when you poke a needle to inject to the body, you want to make the body catalyze itself to become healthy. You're not just measuring it only where you put the needle. So that's why the economy, when we measure at the end of the day, we measure the catalytic impact of the ETP on the whole Malaysian economy. It isn't just looking at that element. But nonetheless, in terms of action, we focus on the things that we do because it's catalytic. I hope up to now you understand the philosophy behind this. We sat down and asked a lot of questions. How are these countries that have made it? We go back to the earlier chart, to the high income. How many countries altogether just now? The 69 countries. Of all the countries in the world, how did they get there? What are the prerequisites? How come US is there? How come UK is there? How come Australia is there? How come Singapore is there? In all the deliberations we've had, we identified 2 things, prerequisites. Not 3, but 2. Number one, those countries identify the areas of focus. And I tell the story many times so that we all understand this. Last Olympics, for example, I related the story 1,000 times already by now. If Usain Bolt wanted to be the 100 meters Olympics champion of the world, he also wants to be the diving champion of the world, he also wants to be swimming champion of the world, he also wants to be marathon champion of the world, then he will not be a champion because he becomes average. Focus is key. It is very important to put the focus. And most countries, when we start at low income, because the base was very low. Everybody didn't care whether no focus doesn't matter. Whatever you do, you're growing anyway. So it's okay from low income to middle income to be without focus, because whatever you do, it is an improvement anyway. When you reach the third level, which we were with, the third group, you really, really need focus. So what we've said was, we are going to focus on 12 NKES. We have altogether in Malaysia about 40 different sub-sectors that we competed for, and we looked at them, but we decided that the 12 is going to be giving us the bulk of the gross national income that will propel us forward. And that's why focus is key. Now, even if Usain Bolt said he is going to focus on 100 meters alone, or there are many, many athletes that focus only on one, they can still lose because they don't have the second point, competitiveness. What the Singaporeans call kiasu lah. You have to be kiasu. It cannot just say, I want to be focused in this all day long. You don't practice. So you must practice every single day to make sure that you have the competitiveness to win the race. So what did the new economic model recommend to cause this to happen? They recommended, the wise men and women inside the NEM, they recommended that we implement 51 strategic reform initiatives. Read the Red Book Part 2. That is the Red Book, the NEM Part 2. Recommendation, 51 things we need to implement that will create the conditions for competitiveness to flourish. And so that is what's called the SRI now. So in our view, if we are focused on the things that are going to make a difference, and we will create the conditions for competitiveness, then as a country, we should get there. So those were the two things. Let me digress a little bit. I know Safura mentioned to me, take your time. So I'm going to put a bit of digression in the morning to make it a little bit more lively. When I was in the airlines, we invited in IATA, I was on the board of IATA, we invited Minister Mentor Lee Kuan Yew at our forum. So there was one guy that asked him the question, what happened after you all left Malaysia? What was the conversation the next day? So Lee Kuan Yew said, ladies and gentlemen, when we left Malaysia, we went into the room. I told everybody, my colleagues, we have two options. Not three, two. Option one, we have no hope, we migrate and leave this country. That's what Lee Kuan Yew said. Option two, we stay here and make Singapore a hub for financial services, a hub for logistics, and a hub for trading. There's no option three. You cannot do anything else. You must focus on being the hub. He said, that is why I had declared, this Lee Kuan Yew said, I didn't care about Singapore Airlines. Singapore Airlines can go bankrupt, I don't care. I cared about Changi. What was he trying to do? He wanted to open Changi so that all airlines can come to Changi, they liberalize it. If Singapore Airlines could not compete with British Airways and others that come to Changi, so be it. The most important thing was he wanted the hub. You must remember, and he was totally focused. The focus is key, and they started to do that. Because if they tried to do everything under the sun, they wouldn't succeed. And that's why in the joke he made was, there was a Malaysian, he said, who kind of campaigned for the pilots to go on strike in Singapore Airlines at that time. He said, I personally made him persona non grata. I said. Personally, why did I personally do it? Because the whole premise around Singapore's growth was on the basis of the hub. That's the nationhood. Anyone that stands in the whole philosophy behind the economy, then I think it's a huge problem. So I put this because it is a story, to my mind, that shows the clarity of focus. He was very clear. Now, under the economic transformation program, we've made it very explicit. These are the areas of focus, and not the 40 subsectors we're putting on. And so I said in the video that the results had been very, very good. And so in the first year, against the set KPI, we've achieved 123%. That means 23% ahead of the set KPI for that year, 2011. This year already, up to now, The data suggests that we've already 94% of the full year target, so it looks really good. Let me now talk about the two things, the SRI and the NKA, so that we're on the same page. Competition law. Is Sheila in the crowd here? Competition, yeah, she's there. She's the lady in charge. So if you want to do anything funny, that to do bid rigging, and the lady will come chase you. And so this is very important. For us, why do we introduce a competition law, anti-competition law in Malaysia? Because we don't want anti-competitive agreements to exist in Malaysia, because this is not for the spirit of competition nor kiasu. Abuse of dominant position. Monopolies are no good. These sorts of things are gradually what we'll have to make sure we get rid of. Price rigging, price fixing, and all of these things, colluding. And those are behaviors that we don't actually want in an economy that we want to bring in competitive spirit. And that's why we introduced that. It's enforced in January this year. Of course, it's new. The Commission Tribunal has been set up, and moving forward, learning from other countries that are implementing it, it's key for us. That's why we took that. Remember, why did we do it? Because we need to create the conditions for competitiveness to flourish.